Do you ever wonder how to make yourself stand out in a sea of other people offering similar products and services to yours? Well, my guest today knows a thing or two about creating success in a crowded industry, and she now mentors others in how to do the same. Erin Dimond is an online fitness coach and a business coach for fitness coaches. She's someone who I look up to so much. I have learned a ton from her since we met just a few short years ago in a business mastermind, and I was immediately blown away by her business knowledge and her understanding of how to stay true to yourself while setting yourself apart from your competition. I can't wait for you to hear this conversation, so let's dig in. Welcome back to the podcast, and thank you so much for tuning in. I don't think I say it enough, just how grateful I am for all of you who listen to this show, who leave reviews, who message us on Instagram. It's the coolest thing to have a platform like this to get to connect with people all over the world, and also to use this as an excuse to connect with some of my favorite people, which today I have one of them. I say that a lot, but really the people that I say are my favorite really are my favorite. Erin and I connected in a mastermind. You guys have heard me talk about a mastermind that I was part of last year, and it truly brought the most incredible people into my life. And Erin and her now fiance, Jordan, were two people I met the very first weekend we had from the mastermind. And I'll get into this in a little bit, but there was a specific conversation that literally shifted just my whole perspective. So I've learned so much from you, Erin, and I'm so grateful to get to chat with you and record it for everyone.
Yeah, well, this is cool for me because you're in my eyes, you're such a planner, and you had planned on doing this podcast for a while. You talked about it as like a little idea, and to see it come to life and how much fun you're having, and just like for you to have this type of long form content and platform, because just your mindset and the nuggets that I've learned from you, it's exciting to see this come to life, and I'm honored to be here.
Yeah, well, I love friendships like ours where I feel like on the surface, you and we have very different strengths. We operate in different ways. We show up differently. And I think that's why I've learned the most from you. I learn the most from people who aren't exactly like me.
Same, man.
And it's something, I mean, I just remember that first weekend being blown away by your business mindset. And we're going to get into this topic today about how to stand out if you are building a business or a passion project that's in an industry that's kind of crowded. And that's exactly what you and Jordan have done. You are in the fitness industry.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a lot of women in the Powerhouse Women community who are tied to the health and wellness industry in some way. So I feel like if anyone can understand what it's like to make your mark and stand out in an industry that can feel at times kind of crowded, it's someone who has built a successful business in the fitness industry. And you've done that. You not only have built your own, but now you coach others to do the same. So I can't wait to hear your thoughts on that, but I'd actually love if you would just start and talk a little bit about how you got your start in fitness and then what inspired you to then create a business out of it. And then how did it evolve to where it is today?
Yeah, I love this topic. I'm excited to dive into that after I give a little bit of backstory on that, because I think that's a lot of people's fear, and it prevents a lot of people from starting in the first place. And it gets a lot of people stuck, and it gets a lot of people discouraged because they just feel like everyone else is doing it, which really, man, that's not true at all. Usually you're only inside your own little bubble and looking in your own industry. Like you may be the only person in the fitness industry that people follow. So it's not as crowded as you think it is, although it is getting more and more crowded. But anyway, so kind of backstory where I started. So I always say like a lot of this happened by accident for me. I really never even I never set out and said, all right, I'm going to create a business helping people with their fitness goals. And I think that's a good takeaway and a bit of advice. You'll hear me mention Jason Phillips a lot because he's my current business coach. So I get a lot of stuff from him, but he posted something the other day on like a questions feature where people had asked, when and how do you start charging people? And his reply I loved. It was like, give so much stuff for free until people say, you know, like, how can I pay you? You've helped me. How can I pay you? And that's kind of where it happened for me. I was just documenting my competition journey, teaching spinning classes, huge fitness enthusiast, just loved it. And honestly, the reason I was documenting so much of it was because I was lonely, because I didn't have any other friends who did it. I didn't have anyone to talk to about it. So it was just like, okay, you know, I have to like put this out there in some capacity, and I can find online friends. And that's kind of how this started. And then eventually it grew where people were, you know, learning from me and then DMing me, asking me, you know, can you help me? And I was training a small subset of people in person. I was teaching group fitness classes. I had opened a gym. Like I started with a small studio and then took that studio to like a bigger 4,000 square foot studio. So I was doing all that in person and just documenting. I mean, if there's one thing that you can really do to gain trust and like set yourself apart, is really just document everything that you do. Show that you're a human, show your day to day, let people really get inside. And that's kind of what I did unknowingly. So I documented from the point of like probably my first like workout of my competition prep, through like the first like rusty set of dumbbells I bought for my gym, to like the next leg press that I bought, like training people in there when there was like 2 pieces of equipment. And it just gained a lot of trust for people to see the journey. And I think a lot of people are so afraid to document that journey. They'll document when they get on top. They'll document when, you know, they've made it, whether that's their fitness journey or their business journey or whatever it is, that, you know, their relationship ups and downs, whatever. I've just kind of said, you know, I'm just going to kind of treat this as my diary, share it all. And it started for me. And then once I actually started to learn about marketing, I'm like, oh, cool, that's what you're supposed to do. Good thing I've been doing that for the last 4 years. So documenting that process. And then, like I said, from there, people asking, can you help me? How can you help me? And it just happened so often that I was like, well, there has to be a way. And I knew of like one other person at the time who was doing online personal training. This was like in 2012. So there weren't a ton of people doing it. I kind of just watched what she was doing, and I said, you know, she's figured this out. I can deliver workout programs to people. I can do this. And was able to do that consistently to about 2016 or so. And then I would say around that point is when a lot of stuff changed. A lot of stuff with social media and algorithms, just the industry in general, which is why I love that we're talking on this topic today, because I saw a lot of people who did it the way I did it between like 2012, 2016 fall off really hard around that period, because it's like, well, it's saturated. Well, you know, you can't stand out anymore. Like that was a good ride. And just like those who have that mentality, they will fall off. Those who actually have an entrepreneurial mindset of, you know, I've made it this far and I had one good, like lucky or whatever you want to call it, break, I'll find another way, I think is the biggest skill you need to have in that way. So that's kind of to sum up that first half of how I got to that point, kind of how I got started at least.
Yeah. And okay, there's already so much gold in there. I'm like, which direction do we even take this? Because so much of what you said, I think, is gold. That, you know, in the beginning, people don't necessarily they don't need someone who has it all together. They want to follow the journey of someone who's just a few steps ahead of where they are.
Yes.
So especially, I think that is really important. I want to underline that for someone who's newer, starting out, and maybe you follow a bunch of people who are further ahead in whatever industry you're in. But to realize that what the other part you said, which is so genius, is there are the people that you want to impact probably aren't following all the people that you are. You might be the only one speaking on that topic, whether it be health or business, whatever industry you are looking to make a difference in. And that was something I know I had to do when I was writing the book initially, because I had this huge imposter syndrome of who is going to listen to me, that whole story. I had to unfollow some people for a season because it wasn't good for me mentally, because I would just immediately compare myself to people who were further ahead than me, when those weren't the people I wanted to make a difference with.
Right. And I can't tell you how many times. So I have a business coaching program as well. So I coach coaches. So I'm constantly like networking with other coaches, talking to other coaches, putting other coaches like on my social media and on my story. And like, you know, because I'm having conversations with them and stuff. And my audience will get to know those coaches who are quote unquote like behind me, you know, newer, getting started. And I can't tell you how many times those coaches have come to me and said, hey, Erin, I got this client from your audience, but they'd rather work with me because they feel like I can relate to their struggles more, or
Wow.
because I'm a mom, because I'm more like them, because I said this one-off thing. Even times because I have a smaller audience and they think you're too intimidating.
Wow. Isn't that so
Yeah.
true? And
Yeah.
and I find that most often, if we're falling into that trap of imposter syndrome, we have to look at what influences are making us feel like that and almost
Mm-hmm.
put blinders on for a season until we really find our own lane. What do you, because we haven't really touched on this yet, but you do coach other fitness coaches who want to
Mm-hmm.
emulate what you and Jordan have done. So, what are some of the tips that you give to the newer entrepreneurs who are in that stage where maybe they're starting to document and they're really growing their audience, but in order to make their mark and stand out a little bit as they continue to build, what are like some of your top tips that you give to that audience specifically?
Yeah, so something that I've always kind of taught, but just recently I learned like the language for it. And again, I learned this through my mentor, Jason. You have to have some sort of opportunity switch because
Mm.
you are in a crowded industry. And I love, and there's a book called Blue Ocean, and I haven't read that book, but in Russell Brunson's Expert Secrets, he talks about that section of the book. And basically, you enter a blue ocean in any industry. And when I entered fitness in 2012, it was kind of a blue ocean. There weren't a ton of people there. Quickly, it became a red ocean. And so you have to like then subset from there. Okay, I'm not a fitness coach anymore. I'm a women's postpartum coach, or I'm a mid 30s woman's hustler entrepreneur fitness coach. You have to really like niche down from there and then find your own blue ocean. You have to find your unique opportunity switch. So we did a little exercise at the last mastermind of Jason's, not so much a mastermind, but just kind of like a group coaching session, where he had two people stand up who did the exact same thing, and he went back and forth between the two. Okay, like what makes you different from her? And it was like, well, I really care about my clients and I get my clients results, they lose weight. And he was like kind of teasing but going back and forth and saying, well, do you do that? Yep. Okay, now tell me what makes you different. Do you do that? Yep. So really ask yourself, like, what unique opportunity am I presenting here that they haven't been presented
Mm.
with before? Because for most people, they're not going to come to you and be like, oh, you teach people how to lose weight. You have to do it in a way that, like, do it with, they can still drink their wine, they can have a life, you have to speak to them like in their language, and they have to see a unique opportunity in working with you. Is the biggest thing. And like, that's the biggest issue with people's offer that I see. There's nothing unique about it. So of course you're just going to kind
Mm.
of get pushed by the wayside. Everybody's saying the same thing. In terms of showing up on social media and kind of, we call it manufacturing celebrity, be standing out, being more like, consumers don't want to buy from what they feel like are other consumers. They want to buy from producers. So showing up, that doesn't mean having like all the best fancy photos, although that's nice. It makes your stuff look pretty. And there is a subconscious thing there that where people say, well, if her social media is pretty, she probably spends a lot of time on her clients. Like, that sounds so stupid, but like,
Yeah.
she probably cares. If she's putting time in here, she probably makes her programs really nice and whatever. But just showing up through it all and being vulnerable, like really getting to the human level, because people are going to want to hire you based off the silliest stuff, based off of the fact that they got in the same argument with their husband last week, or because you have a pit bull and they have a pit bull. Like, really just showing your life, because those are the little things, especially in the service industry. People buy coaches, they don't buy coaching. So they really
Yeah.
are like, okay, what makes this person someone I want to talk to and share photos of my half naked body with every single week.
So true. And that's something you do really, really well. You have this balance, at least on your social media, and I also get your emails, but this balance between pictures of your life and you share about your relationship, you share about your past and struggles that you have had. And then you'll just hit us with this content that is like so fact based and so like there's so many posts of yours. I don't save anyone else's posts, I save yours. And I'm not even a
Appreciate
fitness
it.
coach, but you really balance this glimpse of your life with also like showing that you know your shit. And I think that's the other thing as you're
Hmm.
you're learning, you don't have to posture yourself to say that you're an expert in something that you're not yet if you're just learning. But
Yeah.
how did you start to work that kind of content in along the way? Because you didn't just roll out of bed and day one, you knew everything that you knew about macro coaching, or even on the business
Right.
side, Instagram. How did you start working that in? And did you deal with any imposter syndrome?
So for me, like I said, starting out, I had such the mindset of I was just kind of doing this for myself. So
Yeah.
I had about as much of a filter as if I were like writing this in my journal, like really,
I love it.
which is nice. I do look back to post like now Instagram has that feature where if you, I just learned about this the other day, apparently like I'm old and like it's hard for me to start to figure these things out. But if you go to your story and then you swipe over to create and then you swipe over to the right a couple of times, you can hit the little like time thing and it will show you posts from like 2 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, 6 years ago. And I haven't had access to those otherwise. And I cringe at like the stuff I used to talk about five
Oh,
years
same.
ago. I'm like, what made you think this was helpful in any capacity? Um, I'm off track. I forget why I even brought that up. But so I think for me it started as just so natural, and I got, there's a positive feedback loop there. The first time I shared something really vulnerable, it was scary. I kind of had that should I really say this? I don't know if people are going to judge me. And then I just got so much positive feedback and so much connection and so many client inquiries from it, realizing that that's actually what people want to hear. There's enough of people really, they want like the connection. That's why we're on social media. It's the one like platform that we have now aside, it's like a step different from media where people are kind of celebrities. Like we see some of these people as celebrities, but you also get the inside scoop of their real life. You get to connect with them. And then realizing too, Angie Lee says it this way, and I always kind of stole this mentality of hers that, 50% best friend, 50%, hey, I know my shit and you can follow me and I'm
Yeah.
good. Like I'm not just on here talking about my life 24/7, which is what I realized. Like, and a lot of like factual based content, it gets really easy to create as you have clients. So if you're brand new and you're like, I don't know what to talk about, as you gain clients, like that's why I've created most of that stuff, because it's just the same questions I get over and over and over, and I can easily point people back to those posts. And I figure, if 3 clients have this question, there's probably several people on Instagram who have this question. So if you're in a point where you don't have clients yet, just doing market research. And I mean, you can do that through asking people to DM you, putting up questions, features, hell, getting on the phone with anybody, like offering free consult calls to your ideal client, and just like, what are they struggling with? Have a pen and paper, write down their exact language, and then go on your story and create content around that. Because you do have to have a platform that is helpful to people, like posts that they're saving that are like useful, that they can come back to, and that is digestible. But at the same time, you have to have the vulnerability, the human side, so that it's, so that they're not thinking, I could just go Google this. Why is it special coming from you?
Yeah, that's so brilliant. And I think in this grand scheme of talking about how to stand out, the more you can speak in that crystal clear manner to the people that you want to serve, that's ultimately what stands out. It's almost like I imagine the news feed is like this loud party that's going on and people are drinking and shouting, and then it's almost like you are able to be that voice that kind of says like, hey, come here, like I know what you really want. And that's something that you do really well. Angie Lee does that really well. There's a few
Yes.
other people that I follow, and what I have observed is just that feedback loop, like being really curious and getting the feedback directly from their audience and then
Absolutely.
incorporating that into content. That's really cool. That's gold.
Yeah, speaking in their direct language, because especially for me, it's hard. I've been in the fitness industry for a decade now, and I don't work with many clients, one-on-one fitness clients, so much anymore. A lot of my team does that. So for me, I'm like, I have to get back in there. And so
Yeah.
this month, I've probably talked to at least 100 people on the phone. It's been a crazy month. But man, it's been so good going back to like, oh, this person still thinks they want to tone their muscles. Like I need to talk like that. I need to remind it. Like I needed the
Ah.
solid reminder of where they're at. One of the biggest mistakes I see people make is they're speaking to their peers. And I'm not trying to impress other fitness coaches. I'm trying to help people achieve the physique that they want. So I need to meet them where they're at. I need to make them understand. And I see that in every industry. And that's one thing with our IFCA students that I call them out on so much. Like I'll pull up a post and I'll be like, who are you speaking to here? Me? Because like I understand, but I know you're like, you know, ideal client, mom of two who is afraid of the gym, like is gonna scroll right past this. They don't care what glucagon is or like, you know, all these things.
Okay, that right there, I feel like we need to circle back and underline, put stars by that. Say that part again about who you're like speaking to your peers versus who you want to impact. That right there. If people take nothing else away, listen to this.
Yeah, for sure. I think it comes from a little bit of imposter syndrome, right? It's like, oh, I
Mm,
don't really feel like I belong in this industry, so let me like really show them I do. But like, who are you showing? And that's the
yeah,
thing. There's no governing body that says whether or not you're allowed to have this business. So you're not
yeah,
proving to anyone. So yeah, writing content for your ego or like that's really just going over people's heads to show that you know what you're talking about, it really doesn't serve anybody other than yourself, other than your ego, other than maybe like a couple of your peers will look over and be like, oh, good job. But it doesn't get you clients if that's the goal.
yeah. Oh, that's so good. That was actually something I had in my notes to like bring up, and you just nailed that. I mean, that's so huge. And okay, this direct doesn't directly tie in, but it also kind of does. This is one of the posts that I saved from you that you had. I think you were using an example that you had used with your business coaching clients about content that actually converts on
hmm
Instagram. Because I think this fits into the whole like, are you trying to impress people? Are you trying to make an
hmm
impact? But you actually have like the analytics behind it to show there was like a post that got a lot of likes, but then
mm
very few website clicks, which if you don't know what I'm
Uh-huh.
talking about, if you have a business account on Instagram, it'll actually tell you these things. It'll tell
hmm
you not just the likes, but it'll also tell you, did they go to your profile and click on the link, etc. And then you had another post that had far less likes, but like an obscene amount of clicks over to your website. I would love if you would talk a little bit about that because I think, again, standing out in an industry doesn't always mean you
Yes.
have like this really popular Instagram feed. It's like, are you actually converting that to business?
Yeah. Oh, I love this topic so
I
much.
know.
And I'm going to be sending this podcast to probably all of our students because I can't say this enough to
Yep.
people. No matter how many times I say it, they're like, well, Erin, I thought this post was so good. And look how many likes it got. I'm like, is that our measure? Like, is this a popularity contest? Or are we trying to make money? Are we trying to get clients?
What's
Um,
happening?
yeah. So it's frustrating for me who gets it, but I also get it, right? Like those likes are nice little dopamine hits and it's a nice little measure
Mhm.
and it's like if I can make a comparison it's like a comparison to the scale. You step on it and that's your measure of progress, and really gosh that's not what it means at all. And so
Yeah.
we spend 12 weeks with fitness clients like trying to reframe their whole mind around the scale and what that actually means. So same thing in business or um, client attraction. So if you think about it, it actually works that way for a really logical reason. And anytime anyone explains anything to me in logic, I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. So Instagram's smart. They want to keep people on their platform. If you have a post that all of a sudden people are clicking a link in your bio and clicking away from Instagram, they're going to say, don't show that post to very many people. They're taking us off Instagram. It's the exact opposite thing of what we want. So just by nature, if you're getting a bunch of website clicks, you're not going to get as much reach, which means you're not going to get as many likes. But you really have to then stop and ask yourself, well, what's the goal? Is it to take people to the link in my bio, whether that's to, an application that talks about your service, whether that's a freebie to get people on your email list, whether that's a link to a podcast, like whatever, that should be the goal for those specific posts. And realizing too that there are posts for specific things, there are seasons for specific things. I mean,
Mhm.
sometimes with our students, it's like, okay, you're not focused on getting, and this is a little bit off topic, but getting new clients and making a bunch of revenue in the next 30 days, you're focused on list building or whatever. So
Yep.
realizing that there's content for that. And this whole last month, for example, my own business, this whole last month, we're in a launch. We're transformed together. We're trying to really get fitness clients in because we open the cart for 30 days and then it's closed. So I don't really care if I'm, getting a ton of reach on Instagram. I care if I'm speaking to ideal clients and getting them into that program. And then, I'll go back to creating more quote unquote viral type content, stuff that I know is going to like just engage with people. That's not going to say click the link in my bio. That's not going to be driven off of website clicks or anything, which that kind of content is great too, because that's how you grow. That's how you connect with people. If every single post is, click the link in my bio and you're constantly not getting any reach, that doesn't serve anybody. So you have to lay out a game plan, whether it's like how we do it, like for 30 days, I'm going to do this and then I'm going to shift, or whether it's like within IFCA, we give our students a content calendar to kind of help with this. So maybe it's every Monday, it's a call to action for your coaching. Every Wednesday, it's a call to action for your freebie. And then the other stuff sprinkled in is stuff that you know is going to do better so that you can kind of keep that wave. But it's being intentional and understanding that likes overall are such a silly metric for your business.
Yeah. And again, if you aren't really familiar with what I'm talking about, you at some point, if you have a business and you're using Instagram to grow it, you'll convert your Instagram account to a business account. And that's where you can actually see those metrics. But it was such an eye opener because it's easy to get caught up in the vanity metrics, like you were saying, but realizing that that isn't actually what I wanted to measure. For me, it wasn't what I wanted to measure overall. So I love that. And that's just like another example of the pure gold that you you really do give to everyone in your audience. So I'll link her Instagram in the show notes because you'll all want to go and follow, because there's just, whether you're in the fitness industry or not, truly, and I say this like just from such a genuine place, you are someone over the last year I have learned so much from. And I think that often it's people in different industries that can be our biggest teachers and mentors.
Completely. Yeah, that was one of my favorite things about our mastermind is it wasn't just all fitness people. And I was able to look at people in the mortgage industry or real estate and be like, wow, okay, no one's doing that over here. One other thing I wanted to say about the likes and those metrics is if you think about it too, the whole reason we put so much weight on that is because everybody can see it. Everyone can see your likes. I think the best thing that has ever happened with Instagram is that likes were just taken away. And I don't think they're taken away for everybody, but I was one of the first ones they're taken away from.
Me
and
too.
I'm like, thank God. Because it's just like with a client where like, I'm like, okay, if you're going to do this, I'm going to take the scale away from you. We're not even going to use it as a metric. We're going to look at photos, we're going to look at measurements, and you're going to hide that thing under your bed. Because when you think about it like that, it's really like such a light bulb moment of I'm totally doing this for my ego because I care what everybody else gets to see. I wish website clicks were totally visible. I wish metrics that like actually helped you were visible, because then I think this comparison game would benefit us actually to look at someone else's business and be like, oh, okay, they're doing this, they're producing this kind of content, they're getting this kind of result, and we could compare in positive ways that actually like produced income and impact.
Yeah, it's so true. I love that. And that's one of the top posts that I go back to regularly and just have worked to switch my mind in using Instagram more as a tool for business than for just for fun, or just, if you're listening to this and you're really just sharing things for fun or it's just for your family, then that doesn't matter. But if you're using Instagram to grow your business or to attract new clients, then something for sure that you should think about and go back. You can scroll back far enough in Erin's feed and find that post, or message me and I'll send it to you because I have it saved. So you mentioned the mastermind that we were both a part of. So I want to circle back to what I was saying in the beginning, and have you just talk a little bit on the importance of mentorship, because I know this has been huge for you as well. So the mastermind that I joined, that we both were in last year, was the very first time I'd invested at that level in myself or my business. And I remember walking in that first weekend sort of with the I've shared about this before, but almost, if I'm being honest, with this mindset of, okay, I paid all this money. Now, like, this guy better like impress
Give me
me,
the secrets.
right? Yeah, like there has to be something. But I realized really quickly, no one person is going to change my business. It was going to be me. And I remember that weekend just making the conscious decision that it was up to me to make the most out of this experience, including if I really like asking bolder questions of people, really being willing to dig into what made them successful. And as we were going around, I think it was in the beginning, sharing our wins, sharing what we were up to in our businesses. You and Jordan were just coming off of having filmed the reality show that you were on, and you shared about this month that you had income wise, and you had been completely off the grid. You had to set up your business to automate. But I just remember sitting there and going, it was a moment where I realized I was thinking so small, just in terms of the impact that we could make, in terms of financially what was possible. And that for me, I'm sharing this for a few reasons. Number one, I think it just speaks to the power of investing in yourself and putting yourself around people who are at a different level than you, or who have a different mindset, who have a different financial thermostat. I mean, that I remember I sat with you
Yes.
at lunch and I was like, tell me how your business did that much in a month, which I normally would have been too embarrassed to ask or just
Right.
too shy to ask. But I was like, F that. I
I'm here.
invested in
Yeah.
myself. I'm
Yeah.
here. And that conversation, even just sitting with you, was still like one of my favorite memories from that whole
I
year
love that.
experience. So I gave you kind of a lot there, but I would just love to hear. I know for me, that conversation with you, I mean, that could have been like my whole money's worth of the mastermind. But what has investing in yourself for both you and Jordan for your business, what has that done, and how has that helped you stand out in your industry?
That's a great question. You might remind me of it because I have to touch on a couple of things you just said. Because I think that's all such gold for
Yeah.
everybody listening. Like that's so, so important. And it's so cliche and you hear it so often of, you are the product of the 5 people you surround yourself with, blah, 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 all that stuff. But like, man, it couldn't be more true. So I'm so glad you like wrapped it up into a relevant story and everything, because that's been everything for me.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime I've ever been able to achieve anything, it's because I've had a model to look at. Like I said, how I first started online training, I was like, I need to find some evidence that this is possible. Found one other girl who did it, kind of just watched her from afar, like didn't invest money there, but was like, I think I can figure that out. I think I can do what she's doing. And honestly, like, just to like spoiler alert, everybody, all businesses is like modeling after other people and copying after other people.
Yeah.
So if you can find evidence in what someone else is doing, and then like just seeing that it's possible and putting yourself in those rooms, and then especially being able to ask the questions, well, how'd you do that? And those who have done it, especially those who like are investing in themselves, they want to offer up that stuff because they want to feel valuable in that environment too. Because I know me personally, going in that mastermind, we all feel this way. We all feel like everyone else has it figured out except for me. So if someone asks me a question, how'd you do that? I'm like, oh, let me help, because everyone in here is helping me so much. I didn't feel like I had anything to contribute. And I think everybody feels that way. So I love that you just touched on like, ask the questions, ask the hard questions. And that's something that Jordan has taught me more than anybody. That guy, he gets us so many opportunities because he just is not afraid to ask questions. He asks the questions that I'm like, not going to bother that person. I'm not going to do that, whatever. And he walks straight up and just over and over and over. And he's so like innocent kind of that I just have such a resting bitch face. And I think people would look at me like, why are you being so nosy? But he's so good at it. And he's taught me a lot. And I have a lot of friends that I admire like that, because they get the opportunities because they ask the questions. So that's like my 2020 goal, is just be better at that. Like, do not worry about if you're going to offend this person or if they're going to be annoyed. I mean, you'll find out if they're annoyed and you can stop. But back to your question. So what has investing in ourselves done for us? So really similar story. That was pretty much, that mastermind was really the first time for me to have done something like that too. Yeah, really at all. So I had this just kind of work harder mentality from, like I said, 2012 to 2016. In 2016, went through a really ugly divorce. Prior to that, was living in extreme scarcity, just feeling like I couldn't invest money in myself.
Mm-hmm.
And actually going through that divorce, it was like the best thing that ever happened to me, because I'd lost a bunch of money anyway. I had to pay all these attorney fees. I had to spend all this money on stuff. And it kind of just made me realize, you know what? It's okay. You know how to make money. You can spend money. You're going to be fine. It really just snapped me out of scarcity. And I kind of told myself going into that next year, what if I, take all that money that I had to spend in 2016 and I just invest it in myself and in my business? Like, what could happen? And from there, it really was crazy. And a lot of times it's not even so much like you said, investing in someone, expecting you're going to get like secret magic strategy. It's almost just the decision that you make to level up. It's like, if I'm going to spend 10 grand, 30 grand on this thing, this is a freaking priority now. Like I have to put my focus into this, and I have to make it work, and I have to ask the questions. I have to make myself uncomfortable. I have to, really get in there and do this. And that's kind of what it did for us from that level. And we just since then have been on a perpetual cycle of investing. And I'm almost like, how much is too much?
Oh my
Jordan
gosh.
and I are like looking. Yeah, we hired a virtual CFO this year because we're like, the numbers are getting kind of big on both ends,
Yeah.
and I need to like really like, I finally like can understand how businesses would go bankrupt. I used to always think like, if you're making that much money, how could you not manage your expenses? But then when you do start investing coaching and stuff, it gets out of hand quickly. So I've called in someone who is better with numbers than me.
Oh, that I'll have to get that more info about that from you offline.
Mhm.
But I know so Elliot and I made the decision. We actually invested in another mastermind, but we're doing it together this
Oh,
year, which is
nice.
so cool. And I'm the one who's always like, oh no, like this is gonna come back to us, like very willing to make the uncomfortable investments. And this is,
Hmm.
I hope you wouldn't mind me saying this, but like this is his first. He watched me do it and watched that, like what I got out of it and what it did
Yeah.
for our business. But it's his first time like being a part of it, and so it's been
Mhm.
cool even just to observe. I remember being at that point where I was like, okay, here we go, like this had better work, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
And I think you really hit the nail on the head. And just to reiterate, it's never a coach or a program that's going to change your business, but sometimes
Right.
making those, what an uncomfortable investment for you could be a couple $100 for an
Right.
e-course, but investing in something that puts your butt on the line, and I think it just helps you take yourself and what you're doing more seriously, that has been a game changer, like
Yeah.
by far.
Tony Robbins, we went to Tony Robbins recently, another
Oh
investment we
yeah.
made. He always says, where your focus goes, your energy flows. I also think
Yeah.
where your money goes, your focus goes. So if you're
Yeah.
investing in any key area, whether it's, physically or your business or like you just an e-course, whatever, you're gonna pay attention there. And it like kind of, investment's all relative, right? And I can like, we just invested $30,000 in a coach this year, and it was like one of my biggest investments ever made. It was really, really scary, but like you said, it could be that $1,200 could be relevant for somebody. But I do think it almost has to stretch you in some capacity. Like it has to like be enough there to pay attention. If this coach would have charged me, the same thing as that first mastermind. Actually, I noticed that with the first mastermind where
Mm,
what the financial investment, we had start making more money, and it was kind of like, well, I'm not going to show up on those calls, like, yeah, whatever. But if we
yeah.
would have been more invested, I probably would have.
Interesting. Yeah, that's such a great point. Okay, well, I'm going to start to wrap this up because I could literally talk to you all day.
Hmm.
First of all, before we get into some of the final questions, tell people where they can find you, and maybe even just a little bit about there's a couple core programs that you and Jordan really offer. So people are going to be hearing this at the end of January. I don't necessarily know if any of them will be open at that point, but at least tell people what you're excited to
Yeah.
be focusing on in 2020, and then where they can find you.
Yeah. So right now, like I mentioned, we're at the tail end of this Transform Together launch. Transform Together is like a hybrid of education and fitness coaching. So the two put together. By the time this airs, that enrollment for that will be closed. We're not sure when we're opening enrollment for that one again. Usually we do it twice a year, once at the start of the new year, once in the summer, but we're not 100% sure if we're doing the summer launch this year. It's just a lot because we teach so much in that program. So that's one of our like main core things we do. Probably my favorite thing in the world is IFCA, coaching other fitness coaches. And I'm again not totally sure when we're going to open for that, maybe February or March. But we usually take a class of around 30 students or so. And these are fitness coaches who it's not their first step. We do have a lower level course for those who are just kind of starting. But these are for coaches who have tried for a little while, or those we've taken on some beginners, but those who just really, really like are going to do it, like are sure, like almost like they're doing this with or without us. This isn't like I'm kind of interested in fitness and like I post some fitness
Yeah.
stuff online. It's like, no, you really want to help people, you really want to make this a career. And that's just a lot of fun. Just all the stuff we talked about today, it's like this is my favorite thing to talk about, helping people like grow their business and their brand and just to do this. So we do that a couple of times a year as well. And then I have my own like one-on-one fitness coaching that I do, and I take clients all throughout the year for that. I don't take on a ton of clients, but just, as they inquire, as it's a good fit, hop on the phone with everybody, make sure that it's a good fit. Because I don't sell fitness the sexy way anymore. I'm like, if we're doing this, we're doing it for at least 6 months, and you're actually going to get results. You're actually going to sustain these results. And that's not super marketable. So those who are ready for a serious change are typically the ones that I take on for that. And then as far as where to find me, Instagram's where I always hang out. So it's Erin Dimond Fitness, and it's Diamond without the A. You might find me with an A too if you just
if you search hard enough. And I will link all of that. I'll get the program links as well and just pop them in there in case people are listening to this at different times of the year. Cool. Seriously, this is one of the most valuable podcast episodes I've ever recorded. And awesome. Like I said, I have learned so much from you. I'm so grateful for you and for your friendship. And now to get to share you with this audience has been super fun. So thanks so much for being here.
This was fun for me. And like I said, I'm always going to be pointing students back to this because this is the kind of stuff that I talk about all the time with our clients and the things I can't say enough. So this was awesome. I feel like I have a good little concise, here you go listen to Lindsay and I chat about it.
Here you go. I know. Like you said, those things that you say over and over and over and you still get asked about. And there are, and no matter where you are at in your journey listening to this, we do want you to know that, both of us started out exactly where you are at too. Yeah. So as you're listening, my biggest hope for this podcast is that people hear that inspiration and encouragement in each person's story. And kind of along those lines, I love to end with just a final word from you to the person who they just need a little encouragement to take that next step, to get out of their own way, take the next step toward whatever their big idea is. So, we're now a few weeks into a new year when people are going to have access to this. What would you say from your experience? What do you want people to know in order to take that next step in their own journey?
Yeah. Well, as you were asking, the first thing that popped to mind, which is weird, I don't think I've ever said this in my life, but this is the first thing that popped to mind. It's just that everything is figure outable. And I feel like I've had a lot of conversations with people lately where they're just like, oh, I don't understand technology. And it's just like, well, that's it, quitting, or not even so much quitting, but they just go on kind of a downward negative spiral. And you're going to hit roadblocks. You're going to hit barriers. That's just the game you're signing up for if you want to do this. And if you just kind of go into everything with that mindset, well, everything is figure outable. And if you come up against a barrier, ask yourself, okay, so how do I figure this out? Or who knows how to do this? Who do I ask? And just asking productive conversations. And if you have that mentality, like, you will not fail. Failure is giving up. So just continue to, each barrier, you're going to gain momentum and you'll get over them.
I couldn't love that more. Erin, thanks so much for being here.
Awesome. Good stuff.